Hey, it's Seraphin, and today we're making an enriched rose-shaped bread with a wreath around it, a feast for both the tongue and the eyes. Especially with Valentine's Day coming up, I think it's such a good recipe to have on hand. And I'll tell you now, this was so simple to shape, and the bread dough made it even easier because of how we formulated it. The Tangzhong inside made the dough a lot drier to handle, the Poolish pre-ferment made it more extensible, adding one egg made it a lot stronger, and of course all these ingredients made the bread actually good to eat. It's not just pretty to look at. So let's jump right into the recipe. The recipe we use today is based on our standard Shokupan recipe. We have discussed in detail about the ingredients and their appropriate amounts for Shokupan in many of our previous videos, so we're not going to go over all of it again. There are, though, a few adjustments that we made in this recipe, notably the substitution of milk powder for fresh milk and the addition of eggs. The percentage of milk-water replacement has been limited to 25% as suggested in this paper. In this recipe, this percentage has been calculated based on the fact that 1 gram of milk powder plus 7.5 grams of water is equal to 7.5 grams of fresh milk. So 8 grams of milk powder is roughly 60 grams of fresh milk. Hence 60 grams to 240 grams of hydration brings us to about 25% milk-water replacement. We add 1 big egg in this recipe, about 50 grams in total. Around 9% of the egg's content is fat, so we need to adjust the number into our recipe. Overall, we limit the fat in our recipe to 6% as suggested by this reference. This amount of fat produces the optimum effect in the bread texture and volume. The tenderizing effect also slows down the staling process, so bread made with shortening remains softer after storage for several days as compared to bread made with the same formula but without fat in the dough. Okay, we're going to start by making the tangzhong, so I'm going to measure in 120 grams of boiling water into this mixing bowl. 118, close enough. And then we're going to add in the rice flour first, 15 grams of rice flour, and then 65 grams of bread flour. Take it off the scale, and we immediately mix everything together. Okay, this looks pretty good, so I'll just do one more flip, just double check for any loose flour at the bottom. I don't see any. I think we're pretty good. Gonna clean off my spatula, as well as the sides of the bowl here. And we're done. Now I'm gonna cover it with this cloth and let it come to room temperature before covering it with a silicone cap and putting it in the fridge overnight. In the meantime, we're gonna start making our Poolish pre-ferment. So I've actually got all the ingredients prepared here. Okay, so let's jump right into the Poolish. This is the silicone cap we're gonna be using to cover it. And here we have 80 grams of bread flour, 1 gram of instant yeast, and 80 grams of water, which is the first thing we're going to pour into the bowl. And then the yeast. 1 gram of yeast is kind of a lot, so it's going to be pretty quick. Got my chopsticks, my favorite Poolish making tool. Just mix everything together. All right, this looks pretty much done with. One of my favorite features about using chopsticks is that you can just use them to clean each other off, just like that. Okay, and we are done. All right, now I'm going to cover it with this silicone cap, just like that. And we're going to leave this outside for about 1 hour before putting it in the fridge overnight. Just want to let it rise a little bit, and then we can stuff it in with our tangzhong. Okay, so the Tangzhong has come to room temperature. Now I'm going to cover it with the silicone cap. And into the fridge with the Poolish we go. Alright, so the Tangzhong and Poolish have both spent the night in the fridge. They're ready. And now I've got my mise en place. And we're going to start making the final dough. Okay, so in my stand mixer's bowl, I'm going to add in all of this Tangzhong. Nice and sticky. And now we're going to add in the Poolish. Oh, look at that jiggle. And then 1 large egg, we measured it, it's 50 grams. 8 grams of full milk powder. 20 grams of sugar. 6 grams of salt. And 180 grams of bread flour. We do have one more ingredient, which is 17 grams of butter, but we're gonna wait until we mix the dough in the mixer for about 3 minutes before adding the butter, and then kneading it until full gluten development. Now I'm just leaving it outside to soften. Just before this goes into the mixer, I'm going to roughly combine everything with the spatula. So we're only aiming to roughly combine this until there isn't that much loose flour left. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. I'm just gonna clean off the spatula. And to the mixer we go. So 3 minutes on medium, add the butter, and then knead until full gluten development, which should take about 10 to 12 minutes. And we're done with the mixer. All right, so I'm just gonna do a quick window pane test, taking a piece of the dough. It should feel nice and strong. It's for everybody who's had dreams of having webbed feet like a duck. Try baking. Okay, so the dough has passed the window pane test. We're just gonna go straight on to the next step. I'm just gonna scrape it out onto the work surface. And this dough should be tacky, but not sticky, all right? So if it's sticking everywhere, if it's a complete and utter nightmare, then something's wrong. But if it's like this, it's a little bit tacky. As you can see, it's a little bit, some pieces get stuck to the surface. That's no issue. It should all get cleaned up. And now I've got a bit of oil here, as well as a bowl. I'm gonna oil the bowl, as well as my hands. We're gonna do our standard procedure. Just round the dough into a nice little ball, smooth. And now we're gonna cover the bowl and leave the dough to bulk ferment until it roughly doubles in size. So that should take around 45 minutes to 1 hour. This can vary depending on room temperature, so make sure to keep an eye on it. All right, so the dough has doubled in size, and now we're gonna get started in pre-shaping and dividing it. So I've got my scale here, and I'm going to uncover the dough. Nice and fluffy, with a bit of flour on the work surface as well as on the top of the dough. I'm gonna punch it down to degas it. And then bring it out. Now I'm going to weigh the whole thing first to get a number. Okay, 627. And now I'm going to divide it into two non-equal parts. So the part that we're going to be using for the roses, I want each rose to be about 20 grams. So 20 times 6, I'm thinking 6 buns. 20 times 6 is 120. I'm going to cut out 120 first. Okay. And now we're going to divide these two pieces into 6 parts. So I'm going to weigh this one again. 505. Okay, so that should come out to about 84 grams per piece. I'm just going to get straight into it. Dividing this by 2 first, moving it aside, and dividing each of those pieces by 3. Gonna weigh this one first. Okay, it's missing about 4 grams. Okay, now that I'm done dividing all of these, I'm going to roughly pre-shape them into little rolls. So just stretching them out and then rolling them up like this. That's the first one. I'll make it clear that I'm not aiming for something too perfectly equal or even too smooth, because we will be rolling these out later on and then widening them out further. So. And now we're going to divide this by 6. 20 grams for each piece. Five grams off. Okay, and then we're just pre-shaping these into little round dough balls. So that's it. Again, make sure not to do this too tightly. We will be rolling them out to make those rose petals. And now we're going to cover all of them and leave them as a bench rest for about 15 minutes. So we really want the dough to relax. All right, it's been 15 minutes. Let's get to shaping them. All right, so I'm going to start by showing you how to make the wreath. So with a bit of flour, I'm going to take one piece, flip it over, and here we have a rolling pin. I'm just going to basically roll it out like that. This is going to fully degas it, so as well as make sure that it's nice and smooth. Just a little more. Okay. Going to tidy up the edges a bit, like that. Roll it one more time. And then we're rolling it up like this. Nice. All right. Now, you shouldn't really need to, but you can, of course, pinch to seal here, just to make sure it's definitely well shut. And now we're going to roll it out. So we're aiming for about something as long as 50 centimeters. And now to make that wreath shape, all we need to do is basically thread it through itself just like this. And I like to bind it together like this, so I'll pull the other one through, and then at the end I link them up just by clipping them together like this. Okay, and we are done. We can tidy it up a little bit, and then just move it directly to our silicone mat lined baking tray. Now, just before we start making the roses, I'm going to do a little extra step. I'm going to sprinkle a bit of water, spray a little bit of water on top of this dough. And then I'm going to flip it over onto this plate of sesame seeds. Such a simple step, but it helps give it a little bit more of that ooh feeling. Okay, back to the mat we go. I'm going to set it down. All right, now that I've shown you how to make the wreath, I'm going to show you how to make the roses. So to make the roses, we're going to take 2 dough balls. So 1 dough ball is 1 rose, but to get that rose petal effect, we need 2 of them in one go. So I'm going to fully degas it just by pressing it down with my hand like this. You may need a little bit of flour, but not too much. Now we want to divide each piece into 3 parts. So just going to make a slice like that, slice that, and slice that. All right, I'll do it to the other one as well. So after we've divided them all like that, I'm just going to quickly round them into tiny little balls, just using the palm of my hand, just like this, pinching in the edges, and then round it in my hand. Okay, and when we're done with all of that, we're going to start rolling them out. So just want to make them into nice circular flat petals. Okay, there we have one. I'm just going to put it down here. While we work on the rest of them. Okay, and now we're going to start arranging them. So I'm going to flatten this one out just a little more. I'm going to take this one and stack it out on top of it. There are no hard and fast rules for how you should stack them, but generally you want kind of the tip of this piece to reach the midway point of the one before it. So somewhere around here. Okay. All right, now to press everything together as well as give us a midway line, I'm going to use this chopstick and just press firmly into the center. This will make sure they all stick together. And now we roll it up. Okay. There we go. There we go. Ooh. You can already see the rose shape forming from the side. All we have to do is divide it by 2. And there we have our beautiful roses. I'm just going to take one and place it atop our wreath. Now I'm just going to set this aside while I work on the rest of the dough pieces. Sprinkle, sprinkle. All right, so we're done with shaping. They look lovely. We're now gonna leave them to proof for about 45 minutes to an hour until they almost double in size. Just covering them like that. Okay. Okay, so the dough is done with its proofing, and we've also taken the time to preheat the oven to 180 degrees Celsius just before they go into the oven. I'm going to brush them with some egg wash. So this is just one whole egg beaten and scrambled inside this bowl. I've got my silicone brush. Okay, now that we're all done with that, it's time to finally bake them. So, putting on my baking gloves. And we're gonna bake them for 20 minutes on top and bottom heat at 180 degrees Celsius before turning it to bottom heat only and baking for another 10 to 15 minutes or until it turns golden brown all over. Every oven is different, so make sure to adjust these settings to your specific oven. And they're done. Look at these beauties. And that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and bye!